If you've spent more than 5 minutes scrolling through social media wellness trends lately, you've probably seen it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you've got these influencers wearing what look like glowing red, futuristic Freddy Krueger masks.
Right, right.
Or maybe you've seen professional athletes casually lying down in those massive glowing red beds. They honestly look like tanning beds from the year 2050. And apparently they can cost upwards of $110,000.
It is quite the visual. I mean, it immediately triggers that skeptical part of the brain, you know?
Totally.
You wonder if we're just looking at the latest expensive placebo or like some elite biohacking flex that doesn't actually mean anything for the average person.
Exactly. It feels like biohacker science fiction.
Mhm.
But today, we are taking a deep dive into exactly this phenomenon. Our mission is to basically cut straight through that social media hype.
Yeah, we really need to.
So we're pulling insights from a really fascinating breakdown by Gary Brecka on his Ultimate Human show. We are looking at red light therapy, or, if we want to use the formal scientific term, photobiomodulation.
It's just a bit of a mouthful.
It really is.
Yeah.
But we're going to figure out the actual cellular science behind why people are doing this, what it claims to physically fix in the body, and whether there is something here for you and me. Okay, let's unpack this, because shining a red light on your skin to heal your body sounds almost too simple to be real medicine.
Well, it sounds incredibly passive, right? We are so used to the idea that healing requires a chemical, an injection, or like a physically invasive procedure. But to set the table here, this is not just an internet fad.
Okay.
We are looking at a modality heavily cited in recent, highly rigorous, peer-reviewed literature in regenerative medicine. I mean, the scientific community is taking photobiomodulation very seriously.
That's good to know. So where do we start?
Well, to understand why it works, we have to completely shift our perspective from the outside of the body down to the microscopic level. We have to talk about the engine room of the human body.
The mitochondria, right?
Okay.
We all remember the powerhouse of the cell thing from high school biology.
Exactly, the mitochondria. But the sheer scale of this machinery is what's truly staggering. You have roughly 110 trillion mitochondria inside you right now.
Wow.
Yeah. And if you were to extract them and weigh them all together, they make up about 10% of your entire body weight.
Wait, 10% of my body weight is just pure microscopic engines?
Yep.
I mean, I weigh 180 pounds, so that's 18 pounds of just pure cellular batteries floating around inside me. That is wild.
It is wild. And inside every single one of those little engines, there are thousands of tiny motors spinning around. This is the Krebs cycle.
Okay, the Krebs cycle.
Right. And its entire physiological job is to generate ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. ATP is the fundamental life currency for human beings.
So it's the raw energy.
Exactly. Everything you do, from lifting a heavy weight to digesting your lunch to firing the neurons required to comprehend this conversation, it all requires ATP. The healthier your mitochondria are, the more efficiently they produce ATP, and the more raw energy your cellular system has to function, eliminate waste, and repair itself.
I want to make sure we're totally clear on the mechanism here, because this is where the research gets really specific about the light itself.
Sure.
I was reading through this breakdown, and I realized you can visualize what's happening when that red light hits the cell, like a highly exclusive nightclub.
Okay, I like this.
Imagine your mitochondria as this high-end club. To get the party going inside, which is the maximum production of that ATP energy, you need the ultimate VIP guest to get through the door, and that guest is oxygen.
But there is a bottleneck at the entrance.
Right.
In our cells, there is a gas called mitochondrial nitric oxide. In your scenario, it is acting like a massive, stubborn bouncer just standing in the doorway. It is taking up physical space on the receptor, doing absolutely nothing helpful in that specific spot, and it's keeping oxygen stuck out on the sidewalk.
And what's fascinating here is how the red light actually interacts with that nightclub door. When specific wavelengths of red light pass through the skin and penetrate the cell wall, they physically interact with the mitochondria.
They do.
The light essentially kicks that useless bouncer, the mitochondrial nitric oxide, out of the doorway. It forces the nitric oxide to detach. Boom. Bouncer's gone.
And the moment that bouncer is removed, oxygen is forced to dock. It floods into the mitochondria. Now, here is the critical mathematical difference this makes for your body's energy production.
Let's hear it.
The Krebs cycle can technically run without oxygen. That's called the anaerobic cycle. But it is incredibly inefficient. It yields only a tiny amount of ATP. But when oxygen enters the chat, when you switch to the aerobic cycle, The mitochondria generate roughly 16 times more energy for the exact same revolution.
16 times more energy. That's not like a supplement giving you a 10% boost. That is a completely different operating system.
It fundamentally alters the capacity of the cell, because when a cell suddenly has 16 times more power, it isn't just surviving baseline functions anymore.
It's thriving.
Right. It has a massive excess energy required to rapidly eliminate waste, detoxify, divide, and regenerate tissue at a drastically accelerated pace. You are supercharging the body's native healing mechanism.
Wait a minute. I need to push back on something here because this really caught my eye in the research. We just established that the light kicks out mitochondrial nitric oxide.
Correct.
Isn't nitric oxide supposed to be the good guy?
It's a very common assumption.
Yeah, I mean, anyone listening who is into fitness or heart health has been told a million times to take supplements to boost nitric oxide. We eat beetroot powder for it. It's famous for vasodilation, opening up the blood vessels to get a pump. Why in the world are we trying to evict it from the cell?
Well, it highlights a major paradigm shift that Gary Brecka's breakdown is championing. The material specifically challenges the mainstream consensus on nitric oxide.
Interesting.
Now, we are impartially reporting the argument presented here, which is that there is a growing body of scientific evidence suggesting nitric oxide is not the perfect panacea we once assumed it was.
So the old myth of it just being this flawless vasodilator is being actively questioned.
Heavily questioned. The argument presented is that while nitric oxide does initiate an initial vasodilation effect, which is why you feel that immediate rush or pump when you take a supplement, it actually follows that up by triggering a vasoconstriction rebound.
Oh, wow. So it tightens back up.
Exactly. It ultimately tightens the vessels back up, sometimes narrower than before, which causes the heart to work harder. But the claims go far deeper into neurological territory.
Oh.
The breakdown points to emerging evidence that mitochondrial nitric oxide, when it chronically blocks oxygen, might actually be a key player in the genesis of neural entanglements and amyloid plaques.
Just for context for anyone listening, amyloid plaques are those abnormal protein clusters we constantly see associated with Alzheimer's disease and severe memory disorders.
Exactly. The case being made is that not only should we reconsider supplementing with nitric oxide, but that forcibly removing it from the mitochondria, getting that bouncer out of the way so oxygen can actually metabolize, is a critical step in preventing long-term cellular decay and severe neurological damage.
That reframes things completely. So if we zoom out from the microscopic level, we've got the engine running at 16x capacity, the bouncer is out, oxygen is in. How does this translate to macroscopic healing?
Well, let's look at how this systemic energy boost actually behaves in the body, starting with the brain.
Okay, let's do it.
There's transcranial photobiomodulation. This is literally the application of near-infrared light through the skull to target brain tissue. The literature highlights its use for major depressive disorder.
Wait, really? For depression?
Yes. Studies, which started in animal models and are now showing profound results in human clinical trials, demonstrate that flooding the brain's mitochondria with this energy reduces neuroinflammation and promotes neuroplasticity.
That is incredible.
The result is an antidepressant effect that is comparable to traditional SSRI medications, but with remarkably high tolerability and virtually no systemic side effects.
To have a non-chemical intervention rivaling psychiatric medication for depression is incredible. But the applications aren't just systemic, they're highly localized too, especially when we talk about physical trauma.
Right.
The sports recovery data is fascinating, specifically the timing of it all. The research emphasizes using photobiomodulation prior to exercise, not just after.
Yes. By exposing the tissue to these wavelengths before the physical stress occurs, you preload the cells with that excess ATP. This allows the body to significantly blunt the physiological damage of a workout.
Okay.
It does this by measurably reducing reactive nitrogen species and prostaglandins in the body.
Let's pause on prostaglandins for a second so we don't get lost in the jargon. If I'm understanding this correctly, prostaglandins are essentially the body's microscopic fire alarms, right?
That's a great way to put it.
Like when you tear a muscle fiber, these chemical alarms go off, signaling the body to flood the area with fluid, which is what we experience as pain and swelling.
That is exactly right. They are the chemical messengers of inflammation. By using the light therapy, you are dramatically suppressing those alarm bells, which directly translates to a massive reduction in systemic inflammation and pain.
Which perfectly explains why the surgical recovery applications are so wild. The breakdown mentioned that these clinical red light beds are so powerful, the near-infrared wavelengths literally penetrate right through post-surgery bandages, casts, and orthopedic braces.
It's pretty amazing.
They are using it to heal medial meniscus tears, ACL repairs, rotator cuffs, and severe bicep tendon tears. The light just bypasses the physical barrier of the bandage and goes straight to work on the damaged tissue beneath.
It acts as a primary pillar of modern regenerative medicine. The research even notes it's becoming a crucial catalyst for stem cell therapies.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Whether those stem cells are being injected directly into a joint to rebuild cartilage or utilized intravenously, which is a practice currently done outside the United States, the red light therapy creates an optimized, highly energized cellular environment.
Making them more effective.
Exactly. It gives those foreign stem cells the biological energy they need to thrive, replicate, and integrate more effectively.
And we really have to emphasize the accessibility factor when it comes to severe neurological conditions like Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's disease.
That is a huge point.
Think about a patient with severe Parkinson's. They might be entirely deconditioned. They might have severely impaired mobility. You can't tell them to go to physical therapy and run on a treadmill for an hour to get their blood flowing and generate cellular energy.
No, you really can't.
But they can literally just lie passively in a red light therapy bed and receive these profound systemic benefits without any physical exertion.
It solves a massive bottleneck in medicine, providing a systemic energetic boost to patients who are physically incapable of generating one themselves.
Okay, giving the cells 16 times more energy to rebuild the body is incredible. We've optimized the engine speed. But let's think about this like a 3D printer.
Oh, I like that analogy.
You can upgrade the software on a 3D printer so it runs 16 times faster. That's the red light.
Yeah.
But if the plastic filament cartridges are empty, or you're feeding it cheap, low-quality material, the final product is still going to fail.
Right.
The cells still need the right raw materials to rebuild that tissue, and this bridges perfectly into the other biotools this protocol advocates for.
The software and ink analogy works perfectly here. Cellular energy is the processing speed. You still need the biological building blocks. And the breakdown spends considerable time outlining how to optimize those physical inputs, starting with the transport mechanism, which is hydration, specifically hydrogen water.
Generated by these portable bottles, like the Echo H2O unit mentioned in the show.
It is.
But how does hydrogen water actually do anything different than normal tap water?
It really comes down to molecular size. Hydrogen is the smallest molecule in the universe.
Okay.
When you dissolve extra hydrogen gas into water, those tiny molecules can easily cross cellular membranes and the blood-brain barrier places where normal water struggles to penetrate efficiently.
Got it.
The clinical studies cited show that this dissolved hydrogen acts as a selective antioxidant. It aggressively neutralizes toxic free radicals without interfering with the beneficial ones.
That's fascinating.
Furthermore, it balances stomach acid and provides a highly specific fuel source for an entire class of beneficial anaerobic bacteria in the human gut microbiome.
And because it's optimizing that gut environment, the key synergy is that hydrogen water dramatically increases the body's ability to actually absorb the foods and supplements you consume. Which brings us right to the actual building blocks. Amino acids.
The proteins.
Right. Now, if you are listening to this right now while drinking a massive whey protein shake after the gym, you might want to put it down for a second.
Yeah, you might.
Because the contrast drawn here between standard supplements and full-spectrum aminos, specifically referencing a product called Perfect Amino, is eye-opening. The research pointed out that common protein sources, like that standard whey shake, can sometimes be as little as 20% absorbable by the body.
Leaving the other 80% to be processed as waste.
Yikes.
When protein isn't fully utilized, the body has to process the excess nitrogen through the liver and kidneys or convert it into glucose. It's essentially expensive, metabolically taxing waste.
So you think you're feeding your muscles 50 grams of protein, but your body's only using a tiny fraction of it to actually build tissue. The full-spectrum amino acids advocated for in this protocol are touted as being 99% absorbable. Because they bypass the complex digestion required for whole proteins, they provide the exact essential amino acid ratio the human body requires to immediately build lean muscle and repair tissue.
They enter the bloodstream almost immediately, providing pure, usable ink for that cellular 3D printer we discussed.
And the absolute kicker for anyone into intermittent fasting is that these specific aminos have virtually 0 calories.
Right.
Because there is no digestive waste, They won't trigger an insulin response or break a fast. The protocol strongly recommends taking them prior to a fasted workout.
That makes sense.
You preserve your lean muscle mass by giving the body the amino acids it needs while your body remains in a state of burning fat for fuel. So you look at the whole picture. The red light provides the processing speed, the hydrogen water optimizes the transport and absorption, and the full spectrum aminos provide the 99% usable raw materials. It's a complete optimization ecosystem.
It addresses the entire metabolic pathway, from the microscopic energy spark to the macroscopic physical tissue.
Now, if this light is forcing cells to repair tissue so aggressively inside a torn knee or a depressed brain, what happens when it hits the very first barrier it encounters? Let's talk about the skin.
Good point.
I want to bring this back down to earth for the listener who isn't recovering from an ACL tear, who doesn't want to spend a fortune on biohacking gear, and who maybe just wants to look a little less tired on their morning Zoom calls.
There is absolutely an aesthetic component, and the dermatological science heavily supports it.
Okay.
Because the red light stimulates that exact same mitochondrial regeneration in the dermis, it significantly improves the production of collagen, elastin, and fibrin.
The big three.
Exactly. These are the structural proteins that keep skin taut, elastic, and youthful. By increasing cellular turnover, you see a visible reduction in fine lines, wrinkles, and symptomatic skin inflammation.
And there is even an FDA-indicated use for hair growth. The near-infrared light applied to the scalp floods the hair follicles with ATP. It physically thickens the root, increases blood flow and nutrients to the scalp, and the breakdown even mentioned it, reversing signs of alopecia.
It's very promising.
Glowing skin and thicker hair, it sounds like the holy grail. But there's always a but in biology. If this is supercharging the system, what is the catch? Who shouldn't be doing this?
The catch makes complete logical sense when you understand immunology. If we connect this to the bigger picture, because photobiomodulation is so remarkably effective at strengthening and upregulating the immune system, it is strictly contraindicated for individuals with autoimmune disorders.
Oh, because you're just giving more energy to the army that's attacking you.
Precisely. If your immune system is already hyperactive, if it is confused and actively attacking your own healthy tissue, like in lupus or rheumatoid arthritis, you absolutely do not want to supercharge that immune response further.
That makes perfect sense.
Similarly, if you are a patient currently taking immunosuppressant drugs, perhaps following an organ transplant where your immune system must be intentionally kept low to prevent organ rejection, red light therapy would directly counteract your life-saving medication. So those are the critical, non-negotiable safety boundaries.
Assuming you don't fall into those categories, how do you actually get these benefits? We promised at the beginning that this isn't strictly for billionaires with space-age tanning beds.
We did.
And this was my favorite part of the entire breakdown because it offered the ultimate, completely free life hack. You don't need a panel, you don't need a mask, you don't need a bed. You can get a vast majority of these exact cellular benefits entirely for free just by walking outside and exposing your skin to natural sunlight.
Specifically, the emphasis is on first light in the morning. Natural sunlight at dawn contains the exact broad spectrum of red and near-infrared light necessary to trigger these specific mitochondrial pathways.
It is the ultimate evolutionary mismatch. Think about human history. For thousands of years, our biology evolved outside. We woke up with the sun, and the very first thing that happened was our skin and eyes got blasted with near-infrared dawn light, literally priming our cellular engines for the day.
Right.
Now, think about your own morning routine. We wake up in the dark, stare at a blue-lit phone screen, walk into a kitchen with LED lights, and commute to a fluorescent-lit office. We are entirely disconnected from the natural light spectrum our cells require to function.
It is a profound environmental shift. But for those who do live in a dark climate or who want to implement targeted therapy and buy a device, the specific wavelengths matter.
Let's talk about those.
The literature points to 680 to 720 nanometers, 810 nanometers, and 940 nanometers as the therapeutic gold standards. But here is the crucial clarification. These different wavelengths do not possess different healing properties.
So it's not like 680 is the skin healing number and 940 is the muscle healing number.
Correct. They all perform the exact same physiological function, evicting the nitric oxide and forcing oxygen to dock.
Okay.
The nanometer measurement simply dictates how deep the light wave can physically penetrate through human tissue. A lower wavelength, like 680, will be largely absorbed by the dermis, making it ideal for aesthetics and skin health. Whereas a higher wavelength, like 940 nanometers, has the physical properties to bypass the skin entirely and penetrate deep into dense muscle tissue, connective tissue, or even bone.
It's just about choosing the right depth for whatever you are trying to heal. That makes perfect sense.
Exactly.
So to bring this all home for you listening today, whether you are an athlete dealing with a torn ligament, someone actively looking into longevity and brain health, or you just want to optimize your morning routine for better skin and daily energy, the big takeaway here is profoundly simple.
Yeah, it really is.
The secret to healing isn't always introducing a new synthetic chemical into the body. Sometimes it is quite literally just about clearing the blockages in your cellular engines and giving them the raw materials they need so they can do exactly what they were biologically engineered to do.
If our cells are literally engineered to require specific wavelengths of light to operate at full capacity, to detoxify, to heal, to generate the energy required for thought and movement, how much of our modern, indoor, artificially lit lifestyle is literally starving our microscopic engines of their most basic fuel?
Oof, that is going to stay with me the next time I find myself sitting under fluorescent office lights all day. Think about your engine, step outside and get some of that morning sunlight and keep clearing out those bouncers. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and as always, stay insanely curious.